welcome everyone to today's webinar. Really excited to be on here with you. Let me introduce myself and Tom. My name is Charles Clark. I'm from BOMA, and we've got Tom Wilson from Better Marketing Results. And Tom, welcome. Do you want to give anyone who maybe isn't familiar with Better Marketing Results a quick introduction to what you do?
Yeah, sure. So to sum it up, I have been working in marketing specifically for accounting firms for the last 8 or 9 years now. And throughout that time, I've picked up where a lot of different accounting firms have left off with their marketing. I've met so many people that say marketing just doesn't work. And have been able to demonstrate some good results for people over that time. So I've kind of condensed that all down now with my team and who I work with, which we've been growing over the years as well. And we've been able to formulate some really good strategies just in that specific accounting space there. So that's sort of where I've come from. I did economics and business and things at uni, but most importantly, the last 8 years I've spent working in the accounting game.
Fantastic. And obviously this is why we wanted to get Tom on board. What Better Marketing Results and BOMA does, we dovetail really nicely together. But look, as we sort of said today, it's about what's working well in marketing for accountants. Thank you to everyone who gave us permission to sort of have a look at their profiles, their sort of online presence. Tom will sort of take you through a couple of his thoughts as we go. And look, Tom, in the interest of time, shall I hand over to you, and you can maybe start off by addressing the question of why all these people have given us their time this afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the first thing I wanted to go through with everyone. I'll just share my screen and see if I can kick Charles off just for a moment, which I think I can. I think I have the power. So that should have come through there. And the first thing I want to do is talk about why we're here. Marketing is near and dear to all of us for obvious reasons. Any business wants new work. And wouldn't it be great if some of that work came from online sources? So we weren't just looking at the referrals that we normally get. So you are, and probably that you're the people that Charles and I specifically work with, which is mainly accounting and bookkeeping firms of 1 to 20 staff, or some 20 to 50 and a couple of 50 to 100 employee sized firms. In Australia and New Zealand, there are some people globally here today, I believe. So if you're tuning in from the UK or something, well done to you, because I know it's some ungodly hour around the world for most people. If you're one of those businesses I mentioned, you probably work primarily with local businesses, and that's where the strategy I'm going to focus around today revolves around. The coffee store you walk past on the way to work. How do you win them as a client? You're probably 99% referral based. Most of your work probably comes from that area, people just mentioning your name to people. And I would say you probably want to grow your business more than you want to win the lottery, right? But your marketing plan might look like a mime at a karaoke night, wherein it looks like it's doing something, but nobody can hear it, right? So you've got all these actions you're doing, but you're not sure if anyone can actually see what's going on or if they're working. And from what I've seen, typically firms are getting 2 or less leads from online sources per month if they're being tracked. And usually they're tire kickers as well, people who just want to quote for the cheapest tax return. So how do we get better results? So that's a bit about why we're here and what we want to do. We all want better results. So how do we get here? Here's an example of a new client spreadsheet. So where all the clients have come through and they've recorded what has come through for that month. And this is a real example actually of someone who's in this call today. So what we can see here is from February 3rd, there's been roughly 15 to 20 new clients that have been recorded as coming from Google/internet. Got all the different industries there, from cleaning to dog training to furniture removal and speech pathologists. And I just asked them to send this through to me last week so I could screenshot this. You have lots of businesses under 500 grand turnover, one that's at $1 to $5 million turnover with 6 to 20 employees. But overall, the number down the bottom right is what I want you to pay attention to. So in an average month, you might get between $9,000 to $10,000 in new client work. And in a month and a half, that looked like almost $17,000 in compliance work for the month. What I want to stress here is that that's realistic. When we look at marketing to the local area and marketing your accounting firm, we're not saying you can get 50 leads per month and convert those and just turn into a PWC, within 1 year. It's just not realistic. So what I want to focus on today is a realistic strategy that works to get you a good amount of work per month, where you can say, I'm investing in marketing and it's giving me a 1 to 10 return. This is fantastic. And then how can we scale that up? So that's a real example. And I want to refer back to that to say, how do we get there? So this is the strategy then. This is what we're going to do. And this is winning local clients within a 1 to 10 kilometer radius of your business with 3 focus areas, 3 things that you really need to look at. And I'm going to warn you, this is hard stuff. This is not, I'll just pay a marketing agency and they'll do it for you. You have to be involved in this. Marketing involves you. So some people might be scared by that, but that just makes it a bit more realistic here again. But firstly, why focus local? Well, think about it. How many clients of yours are in that 0 to 10 kilometer range of your business? Probably a lot. It's actually your target market. And then think about it. Only a few other people can compete based on location. If all the accounting firms out there are saying that they all have the best service and that they all get you the best maximized return and that sort of thing, well, 90% of them can't compete with you based on the fact that they're not close to you. They're not near the client. The client can't drive down the road and see you. So you're only competing with those firms really around you when it comes to location, which is an important factor for most clients. There's also an abundance of businesses in that 1 to 10 kilometer radius, and stats show that there are between 10 to 20 businesses in that 10 kilometer radius of you, if you're in a city, that are looking for a new accounting partner every month. So think about that. Every month, there's 10 to 20 new local businesses, cafes you walk past, barbers, hairdressers, air conditioning installers. You just need to get 4 of those 20 to make yourself have a positive return, to look at possibly $8,000 to $10,000 in revenue per month. Fifth, it's realistic to get good results fast with a reasonable budget doing this. You're not tackling the world and you're not using a national branding strategy, which is like pulling a bazooka out to try and do this. And bazookas are expensive, you're just trying to focus on the quick wins first and expand from there. So this is the best strategy I've seen work demonstrably and measurably within 1 year of working on this marketing strategy to develop these kinds of results. And these are all businesses that are within 10 kilometers of the firm that I mentioned before. So these are all local area businesses that found this firm online. So number 1, show up. Okay. I know it sounds really simple, but if you're not showing up, then how can people find you? If you're not in the high traffic position, no one's going to see you. So I've got 3 examples here on the screen that I want to go over that are 3 different maps of 3 different cities. We have Melbourne, we have Hamilton in New Zealand, and we have Brisbane South here in Australia. Now, I want you to imagine, let's look at the map on the left, first of all. I want you to imagine your business is right at the center of that map where there's a green number 6 or there's 2 green number 6s. What that number 6 means, it means that if someone was standing right next to your business at the center of that circle and they pulled out their phone and searched accountant and they looked for an accountant near them or any variation of that, you would show up on average 6th on the list. And if they're a little bit further away from your business, you'd show up about 16th on the list. And then if you're any further than that, which is probably about 100 meters away, you'd be showing up 20 plus on the list, right? Because there's lots of other accounting firms in the area, probably that are purposefully trying to show up first. It's all a big competition. So they say the best place to hide a body is on the 2nd page of Google because nobody ever looks there, okay? So our goal here is to move up to a better ranking in that local map position when someone searches for an accountant near them, which is again between 10 to 20 people is what Google's statistics say are searching for that on average in cities per month or in local areas in cities per month. So look at this 2nd map here. This is a bit of a better picture here. So this is Hamilton in New Zealand. If you're at the center there and that was your firm, you'd be showing up 2nd when someone searches for an accountant for you. And then that goes out to 6th to 20th and around the edges there, it's 20th. Now, these are real examples of people within this call. And some people in the call are probably looking at this going, hey, I think that might be me because that's their local area. So these are all real examples. This isn't airy-fairy stuff like, oh, this is bad and you could be good. Now, I want you to look at the firm on the right here. This is in Brisbane South. So that firm is showing up number 1 pretty much everywhere in a 5-kilometre radius outside of their firm. There's a couple of spots there where they're 12th or 13th, and that's because there might be 10 different accounting firms in one building there. So purely based on the fact that if you're right next to all 10, they're probably going to show up first. But outside of here, and I live in Brisbane, I know that up at the top right of this square here where they're showing up first for, there is lots and lots of manufacturing businesses up there. There's lots of welding businesses, you know, car detailers. It's a bit of an industrial area up there. And all over there, think about how many businesses there are. People who just even have at-home businesses, which is a massively growing sector. And if you're not responding to that, you really need to look into that, you know, and think about the 10 to 20 people I mentioned before searching for a new accountant each month. Firstly, you show up first there. Now, this next slide, I'm not going to go into detail, but this says how to show up first, basically. How do you do that? How do you be the firm on the right that shows up first in Google Maps when people are searching every month? Well, there's a lot of different actions. You can build web pages that say how you help people in the different suburbs around you. All of that matters, and you connect all of that up to what is central to this, which is your Google business profile. Now, you can screenshot this, you can look at the recording and go back to this list. I won't go over all these different actions because I've just pulled out 10 out of about 80 plus actions of things you can do to increase that, increase your ranking on Google Maps there. But the one I do want to focus on, which I'll go into next, is collecting reviews. So that's eWOM. You might not have heard the term eWOM before, but it's electronic word of mouth. It used to be word of mouth was meeting someone at a barbecue and saying, God, my accountant, he never answers my phone calls, you know, or I've emailed 3 days ago and I'm trying to get a mortgage. So it's, you know, I need my business financials done, whatever it may be. And someone recommends you to someone else. That was the word of mouth. But now it's all online. So let's look at this. When these 3 firms, which I've used as the maps examples before, do show up, what do people see? The firm on the left has 1 Google review. It's 5 stars though, so fantastic. And a pretty complete profile. You can go and find their business. The firm in the middle, 19 Google reviews. Again, excellent reviews. That's fantastic. That's a bit better. 19 5-star reviews. But the firm on the right, it actually has only 4.9 stars on Google. So it's got a lower score per se, but 102 Google reviews. And what happens when you click into those Google reviews? Wow, look at this. All of these stories, people talking about how they've been helped by the accountants there, people being having really in-depth stories about, you know, I was with my old accountant, I had these issues and these guys came and fixed all of that up for me. So not only have you shown up first, to all these people searching in the area, your reviews are 10 out of 10. So, and they've got stories behind them. So you've got this massive social backing. It would be very hard to think you're going to get done over by this accounting firm. And I want to note that there are 2, I think, negative reviews in that stack of 102 there, which just adds authenticity. There's always going to be peanuts that give you a call up and say, and then go, oh, I didn't feel the love, and they just write a bad review. But it just makes it all more legitimate. People know, well, you can't control that. You didn't delete the reviews on there. Instead, you responded to those. And that's the key, is responding to all of these reviews as well. So how do you do this? Well, you generate reviews. Firstly, how do you generate those? With tools and incentives. And this is where it involves you. So you gather templates, you send them to your team, make it really easy for them to request a review. So give your team emails that you say, hey, when you've had a good experience with the client, just send this email and replace the name at the top. Send email campaigns to your clients to gather reviews. So ask them nicely, hey, could you leave us a review? And here's a bonus tip, offer to leave them a review. So if you leave us one, please contact us and ask and let us know if you would like us to leave you a review, as we've worked with you as well. That's so effective. And when you're giving something in return, people are much more likely to then leave you a review, and especially if that's a review for their business. You could leave text messages to clients to gather reviews after a successful meeting. You know, you've just given them a positive tax outcome. We all know the happy feeling when you walk out and say, wow, I really helped that client. Send them a text message asking for a review. And we have a system that automates and does all of this for you as well, which can be really effective to growing these reviews. And that was part of how we got those reviews for the firm I mentioned before. The last thing I want to mention there is something you might not think about, but it's incentivizing your staff rather than your clients to get reviews. Having competitions in-house, say, hey, who can get the most reviews from their clients in this 6-month period? And let's put a prize out there for the person who does that. Get people competing about it internally rather than just offering something to the client, which can be effective, but I've found this more effective for accounting firms in the past. So the last thing I want to go over here is showing credibility, because I'm aware of time. Now, this is a really good firm that I want to show you their website for. So let's say they've shown up first on Google. Let's say that it's a local manufacturing business that's looked them up or looked up an accountant. They've shown up first. They've got 102 fantastic reviews on there. The person's mind is probably made up by the time they go to the website for this client. But then when they do, the first thing they see at the top left is the phone number, because you'll have people that just want to give you a call. They've made their mind up. So the first thing they see is that. The second thing they see is a photo of the city that they're in. That's Brisbane here. So they know that this firm's local. They're not just a multinational. They're not going to deal with changing accountants within a big company that don't answer their emails. They've got a video up there which actually introduces their team to clients as well. And then lastly, but most importantly, you would think this goes without saying, but pretty much the first thing you see at the bottom of this screen here on their website is that they do the things you need them to do. Right? I know it sounds simple, but it says it's about how we can help you. And then it says accounting, tax and compliance, business advisory, wealth and super. So tick, tick, tick. The person comes across, wow, I think this is what I'm after, but do they definitely do, I want a firm that does business advisory and wealth and super as well, or I want someone who does bookkeeping or whatever it may be. And just underneath that, there's a bit more of a list there as well. But you need to make sure you tick that obvious one off as well, and you establish credibility. So that's just going over this slide here, some of those actions to do with your website there that might seem simple, but again, think about it. By the time someone's seen all the social proof from you, all the reviews about you, and you've been recommended by Google first, mine's pretty much made up. So you can go through this in the recording as well, but it comes down to putting photos of your local area on your website, showing your services, give your contact details immediately to people, give a bit of a promise. And this website goes on to say, we know you by name, not ABN. You're not just a number to us. We promise to get to know you personally, ultimately. And the other thing I recommend is keeping your staff photos up to date. Make sure when people come in or before they come in to meet with your staff, they know a bit about them. And there's a nice photo on there of the person they're dealing with. And you think about that, you've just broken down every barrier for that customer. You were the first recommended online. There's countless stories about how you've helped clients online, real stories that people can read. They've gone to your website, seen it's polished, clean. You've got a promise on there. You're local, and you can even get to meet the person you're going to go chat to at the firm before doing that. You can see what they look like. You can read a bit about their background as well. So every barrier is broken down for new clients. So I want to summarize that. 3 key actions there. Number 1, show up. Be on that in that range when people search for you, a local accountant, when they're fed up with their old one. Secondly, show your electronic word of mouth, gather reviews, be very purposeful about that and start a campaign to do that. Respond to all the reviews as well. If someone's left you the time, given the time to leave you a review, make sure you respond. Third, provide a professional website, give your contact details, list your services. Most of you probably do that pretty well, so that one's probably not as much to focus on. And then lastly, show that you're alive. And this is where it goes over to Charles, making your website not static. Talk about the latest tax changes, talk about your staff updates and all the things that BOMA provides to you to make sure that your social media is up to date, to make sure your website is, so that people show you're communicating and you care. And I'll hand over to Charles now, but just at the end, we'll go back and I'll explain to you about some of the things that we do and how we can help you with that strategy I mentioned before, which is relatively new and it's different to our previous services in the sense we can actually offer it a lot cheaper than we used to because we've developed some new software that helps with that as well. But for now, I'll pass you over to Charles and he's going to talk to you a bit about content marketing with your website and keeping alive online, basically.
Thanks, Tom. I'll just share my screen and let me know when that's coming through.
I can see that.
Cool. And actually, interesting the way you finished off because a good question from Brett a few minutes ago But I think you sort of touched on it just then, which is if you've got a bad review, should you engage with them in the review section? My thoughts were like, yes, definitely. You obviously might want to choose how you do that. Is it in the review section, or maybe it's a phone call to sort of see how you can help? What would you suggest?
Yeah, I think definitely the idea is to respond to them, but it's different depending on each client's circumstances. So I think you engage with the business. Like if we had a client where a bad review is left, we'd talk to the business and say, do you want to respond? What do you want to say? Let's manage this. Because sometimes you have a client where you go, no matter what I respond to say, even if I just say something like, we want to make this right, please come in and talk to us. We'll try and improve this situation for you. They might just explode even more. You never know. So you might want to take it offline and respond to them that way. But generally, I say if the client is just one of those people throwing peanuts, then respond on there and say, look, we want to do anything to make this right. Because then people know that if they're unlucky enough to be in that situation, or if that for whatever reason happened to them, that you're trying to make it right. You're not just ignoring it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And a couple of other comments you made. One was about sort of, making reviews a bit of a team effort. And look, I think there's a lot that can be said for that, with marketing in general. And I'm sort of covering, I suppose, both the sort of the content marketing side, but what you can also do within your firm, perhaps, because marketing doesn't stop when you've got a new client. And that obviously that's what a lot of what Tom has been talking about, which is, how do you get prospective client to ring you up and have that first meeting that, you're then able to, discuss their business with them and sort of talk about how you might help. So, that's part of marketing. And the other part of marketing is to say, okay, having got this client or this new client on board, and obviously thinking about other clients, it doesn't stop, and you don't just sort of stop communicating with them. And I think this is a really good lead into some research that was done a couple of years ago. And bear with me if you've heard me say it before, but I think it's really critical to repeat it, because this research was done by our friends Practice Web in the UK, and it looked in early 2020, what SMEs were looking for in their accountants. And it was professionalism, quality of service, professional body accreditation, and sector knowledge. And I'm sure those are pretty, to be expected in terms of what you would be promoting yourself as being experts in. But when they repeated the same research with the same people later in 2021, and we all know what happened, later in 2020, and we all obviously know that, the world changed in February, March of 2020 with COVID. The same SMEs came back and they said it was all about communication. Nearly 50% said that this was the single most important characteristic for a successful accountant that they were looking for. Now, that doesn't exist in a vacuum. That was also followed by crisis management, specialist knowledge, flexibility and adaptability, obviously key, and showing leadership. And these still hold true today. And the reason I put this in is that when you think about, marketing to your current clients or ones that have just come on, it is really all about communication. However, it wasn't without, I suppose, a few issues. And these two quotes, just for me, really stood out, because we all like to think that our accounting firm is unique and special, and that every client out there or prospective client will innately understand exactly why we're different and we are, I suppose, better in whatever way we're trying to be better than other firms. But the reality from these two quotes, and these were sort of indicative of a wider trend in this research, was that from the technical perspective, they actually don't see the difference. They know that you can all do great accounting and bookkeeping services. So what they're looking for are those softer skills, that communication, that feeling loved. And definitely there was a bit of it came through saying, do some of the heavy lifting for me. Tell me the things that I don't know. And really, that's where marketing comes in, because marketing is all about communication. And this is going to help you differentiate yourself as well. And the nice thing, in the area we live in, is that you have so many options to market and communicate with. You've got everything from your website, you've got email, updates, newsletters, you've got your social media networks, you've got events, you've got educational webinars or Q&As like we're doing now. And the ability for you to use these channels to educate and inform clients and also leads, not just about the services that you can offer, the expertise, the knowledge that you hold, but also give benefit to them. So talk about things that are going to be impacting them and their business. And the point here is that if you do this, if you educate them, if you make yourself invaluable to them, you're going to be communicating in a way that's going to build your relationship, is going to establish your expertise, and ideally lead to great conversations. Now, these conversations may be with a current client, or they might be with a prospective client who then has that initial conversation with you. And now they very may well have found you via Google or your website, but it's really how do you convert them from, I suppose, a cold lead to a warm lead. And there are lots of different ways to do that. But obviously marketing is a very low touch way where you're able to present them information and they can interact with it in a way that makes them feel comfortable. You're not sort of doing the sales call, which I know a lot of accountants, understandably feel a bit wary of. As Tom said earlier, or maybe we were talking about earlier, Tom, in terms of one-to-one networking still being super effective. It is still super effective. And, those sort of family, friends recommendations will still be a huge, I suppose, part of, your lead generation. But what is going to make the average client recommend you? It's the fact that, as this quote says up ahead, my accountant has great soft skills. They've got great communication. I feel like they are really looking out for me. And you're, realistically won't be able to do that by having, meetings with them every week and phone calls. You have to find a way to use technology to scale this communication. And again, as I said before, luckily we've got websites, you've got social media, you've got email, you've got, one-to-many events like we're doing now. And all of these are a fantastic resource for you to take advantage of. Now, the point around content marketing, and this is something that our friends at the Gap and we also call educational marketing. And the idea here is that you're producing, regular content, and it's, it's relevant to them. It might be entertaining, it might be useful, and it can be in a variety of forms. It could be blog articles, which obviously, at BOMA, we've got a bunch of those in our library. You might also write some yourself. It could be ebooks, it could be case studies that you've produced of, showing how you have helped specific clients, maybe in different niches. And now these case studies, they don't always have to be written. They could be a video, they could be a podcast which you've recorded. But the idea here is that you create it and then you disseminate it and you give it away for free. And it can also be called inbound marketing, because the idea behind it is that it attracts people to your firm, to your website, to your social media pages, where they can begin to learn more about you, get a feel for who you and your firm are in terms of a personal feel, what it might be like to work with you, and obviously see the services that you offer. Now, always think about content from the perspective of, is it helpful and will it help solve problems that my readers, i.e. clients or leads, might be having. And it's really about sharing your expertise. And I know a lot of accountants, when we've sort of spoken to them, they often say, well, look, they don't often think that they have a huge amount to share, but actually to the average SME out there, the average business owner, all the knowledge that you take for granted and know off the back of your hand, for them, it is gold, and it is something that they don't know. And when you're a business owner, and especially in the situation we find ourselves in now, with cost of living going up and inflation, potential recession, they are looking for guidance and assistance. And through content marketing, you're able to provide them with that. As we said before, you're fortunate in that if you have a website, if you have your Google business page, you have your social media pages, you're able to publish and send out a lot of this content. And obviously don't forget your list that might be clients, or it might be people who have signed up for your newsletter. So lots of different ways that you can get in front of them and give them the information that they'll need. And as I said before, will lead to those sales conversations. Now, email, I think, you know, a lot of people, you know, with all the, I suppose, the rise of video, the rise of all the different social networks like TikTok and all these new ones, don't forget that although the email's been with us for over 40 years and people sometimes say that they're absolutely inundated with their inboxes, it is still one of the most powerful channels that you have once you have someone's contact details. So you can see here the research from OmniSend basically saying that for every $1 spent, you get a $40 return. So I don't know that if there's many other channels out there that will give you such a high return. I mean, I know AdWords is somewhere around $17. So you can see, you know, more than twice as effective as even Google. I think it's also important to say that, you know, for most business professionals, they still prefer it for business communications than any other channel. So really, you know, take advantage of the fact that people, if it's important, and especially if it's from their accountant or an accounting firm where trust levels are high, they will very likely open your email and they will read what you have to say. It's very different if you were a retail firm, you know, who's just trying to sort of sell them the latest products. No, you're an accounting or bookkeeping firm and you have critical things to tell them and to educate them on. So they will open those emails. And in BOMA, we see email open rates that when we benchmark them against the wider industry, are 20 to 30% higher because it's coming from you accounting and bookkeeping professionals. And one last stat just on email, just to sort of prove the point, is to say that, look, it's still an incredibly popular channel to disseminate, and the 69% of marketers who use it, that puts it third behind a company's website at 90% and a blog at 78%. So these three stats, your website at 90%, your website blog at 78%, and your email at 69%, these are three key channels that you own, you can control what goes up there, and are still some of the best ways for you to get your message out there. Obviously, other benefits to it are that it's personal, so you can personalize it to either an individual or a section of your audience, and it's a direct link. And obviously, from your perspective, the cost is either little or zero cost. Now, this doesn't mean that we completely neglect social, as Tom and I have said. It's still a great place for you to be. And if you think about a large proportion of the population these days, we have grown up with social media. It's been around in different forms since the early 2000s. Obviously, Facebook came along in 2008. It is very strange if you don't have a presence on social media, and people after your website and your reviews online will go and look at your social pages. And if you don't have a presence, they may think it's a bit odd. And so look, it doesn't cost you anything to build that presence online. You know, it doesn't cost you anything to have a Facebook business page or a LinkedIn business page. And I would really say it's a hygiene factor that even if you don't use it as your main channel, because you know you have a really effective website and your Google reviews, it is definitely something that you should have, just because you know, it's something that everyone has, and it would be conspicuous by its absence if you didn't have it. Now, this doesn't mean you have to be across all the networks. You know, at a minimum, I'd be thinking LinkedIn and Facebook. You know, perhaps if you know that your followers use Instagram or Twitter a lot, you might want to have channels on there. Really, you know, 2 or 3, it would be sufficient. Just make sure that you have time to, you know, to put the content out across those channels. There's nothing worse than having a social media channel business page and then the last post being sort of from 2018. Now, we will be running a social media webinar in the near future, but I suppose in terms of some key tips, you know, make sure, as I said before, that you're active, you know, engage with your followers. If they are liking and commenting on your posts, you know, follow them, like them back, thank them for commenting, ask them questions. That's a great way to get engagement. monitor your hashtags. So if you have a hashtag for your business, maybe you have a hashtags that you follow. These things might be particular business sectors that you follow or particular topics. Do keep an eye on those, and obviously comment. If you've got something interesting to say about a particular topic, don't be afraid to have a point of view and put it out there. I think, as Tom and I have both said, if you do this, just make sure that, people do respond, that you are being responsive. That's all building engagement, and ideally, someone is going to take that conversation offline and maybe call you up and have a conversation in a more personal, private manner. There's also lots of things that you can share. Obviously, BOMA has a library of things that you can share on social media, but even obvious things like, reminding clients of key dates, key upcoming dates, sharing relevant news about your firm, what you've been up to, maybe changes within the industry that will impact them. There's so many things that you can share. I realize sometimes that it can be hard in the moment to think, goodness me, it's Friday at 2 o'clock, what should I be sharing? So do take the time to maybe have a content plan, and I can share out a content planner in the follow-up email that we'll send out tomorrow, and that probably will help you, with your team members, just have a bit more planning around what you're posting. Now, Tom, you and I came up with a bit of a marketing checklist, and I suppose our thinking behind this was that, it's all great for Tom and I to talk about, things that you could do with your marketing, but probably, as you would explain to your own clients, if you don't have a plan, it's very hard to make progress. And so we've jotted down a few things here as thought starters, and I thought we would run a quick poll, and I'll open it now, just to basically, if you think about your own activities and maybe what you are doing yourself, how would you rank yourself out of 10? Now, this isn't for any judgment. This is just so you get a bit of a feeling for where you might be benchmarked around your peers. So do let us know, and we'll leave it up there for another minute. And Tom, do you have any thoughts on, I suppose, on the need to plan, be I suppose, thoughtful and sort of premeditated in your marketing activity?
I think that you have to be premeditated in your marketing strategy, for, if no other reason, simply because if someone else is, they're going to beat you. As straightforward as that is. For example, with, like what we're talking about with appearing online, it's a competition. There can only be one person that's first, second, and third. And if you're not premeditated and doing really specific strategies that follow what is, the latest thing that's working, someone else will be. And let's say you are premeditated and you knock someone else off that top spot, they're going to be, for lack of a better term, they're going to be pissed off. Like, they're going to be annoyed. They're going to notice that and want to take that back. So if you kind of do a bit of this and do a bit of social, for example, and you post once or twice and then kind of forget for a couple of years or a couple of months, may as well have not have done it. Like, everything has to be consistent, planned, premeditated, and same for emails, and consistent is the other word I'd really use there. Definitely.
Yeah. So look, I'll just in the poll so you can see the results. Really fascinating. So interesting that no one clicked 10, and to be honest, I don't think any company would necessarily click that they were sort of 10 out of 10 doing everything that they possibly could. There's so much that you can do in marketing. It's almost possible to be sort of doing everything, but really interesting to see such a wide mix. Not really anyone, sort of a few people, 21% on 7. There were 8% on 5. 2 had 18%. So I think nearly 30% sort of scored themselves under 3. So a real range of results. Tom, did you expect such a sprinkling of scores?
Sort of. To be honest, I find that whenever I have a poll, 7 is definitely the most popular number, because you don't want to be like halfway, and you don't want to say, oh, I'm all the way there. So you kind of go, I'm halfway, I'm pretty good, So, you do see genuinely that. But yeah, I think it's good to see that a couple of people, like there's a couple of 2s in there, people going, I really need to do a lot of these things, and some 1s. But I'm also happy to see that there's a lot of sevens and eights, you know, as well, 6, 7s and 8s, and people going, yeah, I definitely am being proactive in this area, which is good. So no, I was sort of expecting a similar thing, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, look, obviously, you know, BOMA and Better Marketing Results, you know, we are sort of two platforms, I suppose, a platform and a service, which can very much help you with your marketing. We'll keep this sort of section pretty small because we do have some questions that we'd like to get into. You can obviously see from BOMA's perspective how you can try us out, including you know, how you can maybe get access to the GAPS Premium Library if you're a GAP member, or adding in Walters Kluwer's Premium Libraries, and they're live in Australia and New Zealand. Tom, what's the best way for people to get hold of you?
I'm going to put a link into the chat now where you can book a 45-minute free call with me, where I'll give you your version of that map that I mentioned earlier. So, you know, the map with all the little dots. So you'll see exactly where you're visible on that map. And I'll also give you all of the keywords on Google that your business shows up for. And on top of that, I'll give you all of the keywords that your competitor shows up for as well. So you let me know which competitor you want me to analyze, and I'll tell you what they're doing and give you that list as well. And then on top of that, I'll analyze all your reviews and that sort of thing and give you a bit of a recommendation. And then from there, our solution for this, which is actually a new service that we developed, it's a lot cheaper than the other services we used to do, does things like gives you an app which you can download on your phone, and you can post your happenings around the office and that sort of stuff, and uses some pretty cool new technology that means we can actually, and we haven't done this before, give guarantees about how much work we can give you as an accountant specifically. So we don't offer this to any other business type. But book a call. I'll give you all of that information, where you shop on Google, where your competitors show up. Obviously, no obligation. And then, yeah, I'm more than happy to chat anytime. So I'll put that link in the chat for everybody.
Fantastic. Now, let's get to some questions. A couple have come in the last minute. So if anyone else has some questions that you've been saving up, do shoot them into the Q&A box. So the first two are about emails. And the first one was sort of, what is the sweet spot for the number or frequency of emailing a client database? And what this person really wants to know is, like, how do I avoid spamming, you know, also spamming in quote marks, my email list? And I'll have a quick stab at this, and then I'll pass over to Tom. So I think there is a bit of a rule of thumb. And, you know, if you were a retail business, I know many retail businesses that, you know, would be quite happy to send 2 or 3 emails a week, knowing that, you know, 90% of them will be deleted. However, because you're an accounting professional and advisor, I would suggest that the number is a little bit smaller. Now, I think the minimum I would want to be connecting with my database online might be once a month, and that could be in the form of a newsletter. So sort of what's been happening in the last month, you know, general insights, stories that they might want to hear about. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't send more regular emails, and in BOMA, you can take your database and you can segment it. So you could say, look, something has just come out and it's going to be relevant to directors. So you could say, look, I'm going to send this particular email to all my directors, and that's going to be super, super relevant. And as long as you keep your emails relevant, then you're not going to be annoying them, because this is information that would be, you know, is going to be useful. You know, equally, you could say, you know, look, something has come out affecting super. I want to send this to everyone who I do super for. So again, it's about sending relevant emails to the right audience. And if you do that, and as long as they're relevant, then I think, you know, you can probably send, you know, quite a few emails. What would you say, Tom? Is there a specific number you have in mind, or is it sort of case by case?
Mine's more of a methodology. Is if you're sending it just because you want to send something, don't send it. If you're sending something because it's relevant, send it. So during COVID, think about it. People were sending 4 emails sometimes per week, literally, to clients, but they were all relevant. Like in Australia here, there was stimulus packages announced, then they were taken away, then they were changed. people didn't care that they were getting 4 emails a week because they were relevant, and the open rates in the emails we saw were over 50%, which was the biggest ever during that time. So the time of most emails being sent was actually the highest open rate I've ever seen. But I would say at minimum, there should be something worthwhile sending once per month. That's just there always is that. And BOMA comes up with that all the time. BOMA has good content that is worth sharing, that you could at least get out once per month. And then from them, I'd say you should do more if you can find more relevant things worth sending, which there definitely is within the BOMA library. So basically one at minimum is what I would say.
Now a follow-up question, and then we'll get to the white paper content. So in terms of a best example on email structure to be sending to clients and prospects in terms of length, mix of technical and non-technical content. Again, this really comes down to, you know, the recipient of the email that you were given and what is the purpose of the email. You know, if it's a newsletter, then, you know, having 3 or 4 different pieces of content that would be relevant to a wide range of recipients, because you might be sending it to your entire database, would be good. I mean, equally, if you're sending a very specific email to a niche sector of your database on a particular topic, and you've got 1 or 2 things to say, then keep it succinct. You know, tell them only what you need to. Don't waste their time. You know, would be my advice. Sort of talking about lots of other things. Keep it as short as you can make it. Be succinct. Be clear. And that way they'll get what they need and nothing else. Again, if you're doing a wider newsletter to a broader audience, you know, think about things that might, you know, that are going to interest lots of different people, and then they'll have a look through your newsletter and say, you know, yeah, maybe that story is not something I'm interested in because I'm not that target, but look, this one on sort of agricultural practices, that is what I'm interested in. So you sort of let them have a bit of a choice.
But I think that's a good idea, Charles, what you said there. Sometimes the way I like to explain it to people is it's like when you're back in school writing an essay or a report, or even when you're doing that now for clients, keep it so that people can almost have a table of contents and just go to what they need, and that's it, you know. So if you're sending an email to clients, you've got information in there and links to the relevant articles so that they're not having to read through and go through everything just to find what they want. And I'll just say as well, I think Charles will have to share the link with everyone, because I can't send that to the whole chat of everyone. I tried to, and I just sent it to Charles, so he'll pass that on to everyone if that's okay. But I do see one more question in there that I might quickly answer. Does white paper content for your blog negatively impact SEO? So just so I understand the question correctly, white paper content I see as like a PDF that you might give out, like a white paper to someone to give them information about a particular topic. So no, that definitely doesn't impact your SEO. And that question raises an important question as well, which a lot of people might be asking, which is, if you're all using content on your blog that's similar, like let's say it's used from BOMA, does that negatively impact your SEO? And the answer is no, it doesn't. So don't worry about that. Because you might think, oh, well, I'm posting the same thing as other people. It's not going to negatively impact your SEO, but it's not going to massively positively impact your SEO, because Google recognizes it's duplicate content, and it's going to benefit your site because you're posting content, but it's not going to think that's unique to your site. But don't worry about it harming your website at all. It, if anything, improves it.
Yeah, I had an interesting discussion. We did some research with Early Adopters Hub, and we spoke to a number of firms, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. And one firm in the UK who was very, very progressive, and they sort of, when we started off, that was their big concern. And then we sort of had a meeting with them, sort of another follow-up when they've been using BOMA for a few weeks. And they said, oh, it was interesting. We saw everyone posting about, they had been posting about the electric car. And then sure enough, he said about 3 weeks later, all the accountants in his village or sort of town were posting about the electric car. So good content and good topics, if they're relevant, the key thing is that you don't want to not be talking about it. You know, don't be so concerned about having to have content that you've written from scratch that it stops you from actually disseminating content that will benefit your clients or your readers. I suppose as Tom said, there is no disadvantage to using the BOMA content on your site. I think the thing to take into account is that you can obviously customize it. So with all the content in BOMA, whether it's the social post, the email, or the blog, you can get in there and customize it. So if you want to add your own tone of voice, if you want to give personal examples that are relevant to you and your firm and your experience in your region, add them all in, make it your own. All I can tell you from what our chief content writer says is that it's very much easier to edit someone else's content rather than to have to write something from scratch. You know, especially if you're relying on fairly technical, you know, if you're talking about fairly technical items. I know a lot of people say, well, that's okay. I could give it to someone maybe more junior in my office, or maybe an outside content writer. Again, you have to think, you know, are they up to date on all the things that, you know, that you could trust them to write this article and know that it's going to be correct without you having to sort of go in and spend time correcting it. So, you know, we have expert content writers, like obviously we employ technical writers ourselves, or Walters Kluwer or Gap. All of these organizations are trusted, and they, you know, double check the information to make sure that when they talk about a particular, you know, issue or regulation, you know, it is correct. So again, a huge time saver.
That's right. Yeah.
Do you want to answer? Sorry.
Oh, I think I was going to say the same thing about the questions in there. Two really interesting questions. One's about ChatGPT, which I'm sure we're all familiar with, and the other about collecting reviews post-client interviews. So just to answer them in order, collecting reviews post-client meeting via text, probably one of the most effective possible ways to do it. One reason, and the question is about how to do that, which I'll get into in a moment, but one reason it's so effective is because people are always signed into their Google accounts on their phones. Usually they don't even realize they are, so they can leave a Google review, no problems. And you catch them at the best possible time to do that after you've just given them a positive outcome. The way that we found is the best platform to use to do that is actually one that we've gone out and found and licensed for ourselves. So we're able to offer it at a much cheaper rate to clients. So if you book a meeting with me, I can explain that to you, how that works. But we give you your own portal and basically a very simple form where you either load in a full database of your clients and select which ones to send to after the meeting, or you simply have your accountant sit back down at the desk after a meeting and put the client's name and phone number in, which you might already have or you should already have, and a text will go out to them that'll be templated, asking them for a review in a way that's proven to get the best outcome out of them. And on top of that, we ask for it in a way that gets the client to include some keywords in their review, which is a bit sneaky, but those keywords will help you also rank a lot better locally in your search results. So the reviews become a really important tool to get your firm showing up first for local search results. So the answer is that we have a platform that'll help you with that. And it's pretty much cheaper than any other platform out there because we license it. And we can go over that with you if you'd like. The next question there was ChatGPT and whether you should use it or can. The answer is, will it enhance the question is, will it enhance your SEO to reword BOMA content and post it on your website? Well, if it was not ChatGPT rewording the content, if you sat down there and were able to reword it and create a completely unique article that was worded differently to others, then yeah, Google would see it as a unique and different article. You could try and use ChatGPT to do that, but if you did, you would potentially risk getting it wrong. You know, the AI might rewrite the content with something that's not truthful. Whereas I know BOMA spends and invests a lot of time and resource into making sure the content's accurate, correct, and that it is high converting and well reads well for your clients. So you sort of have to question whether the benefit that you might get from posting unique content is going to outweigh that. And I don't necessarily think it would. You know, I think you're better off being purposeful and writing SEO-based content that will improve your local listing, which is something I can go over with you, but it's essentially making sure it's got the right keywords in it and that sort of thing. So, Charles, do you have any thoughts about that, about people using AI? The AI is a bit rogue right now, people getting it to do everything for them. But how do you feel about that with BOMA content?
Yeah, look, as Tom said, if you want to use it and rewrite it, obviously you totally can. You know, you're able to use the content in any way that you want. I suppose, as Tom said, the only thing that I would say, echoing the comments on truthfulness, is that, you know, I've seen plenty of examples where they've said, ChatGPT, tell me about the life of a particular historical person. And ChatGPT has come back saying all these amazing things, and it reads well, and this person went to university and won the Nobel Peace Prize and all the rest of it. And it was all completely fake. I mean, ChatGPT is fantastic at making up something that reads very well, because it takes a word and then puts another word in front of it, and then puts another word in front of that, and it can read very well. It doesn't mean that the words it's putting in front of each other are true. And I suppose, as Tom said, you know, the risk that you have something that reads very well but is actually factually incorrect or inaccurate then up on your website, and people see that, you know, that is obviously a risk factor that I would consider. But obviously, look, in time, maybe ChatGPT does become, you know, more than some of its parts, but you have to remember that it is trained on the internet, and the internet is a very odd place, and it's full of misinformation and some true and a lot of it false. So, you know, it's not like it's coming from, you know, it's only trained on all correct information. It's trained on everything on the internet, and so that's what it uses. So yeah, as Tom said, you know, I would use it at your own risk, would be my
That's right, yeah. But that being said, there are actually very useful applications for it from a marketing perspective as well. You know, when you're not trying to put, you know, tax information and stuff that has to be technically correct, or you can get in trouble on your website. And rather than go into all of that now, because it's something I've studied a lot, like it's a really game-changing sort of tool out there. I'll talk about it. If anyone does book a meeting with me, I'll add that to the agenda, and I'll talk about how you can use it, how I think is really useful to use it in your marketing, because it can save you a lot of time. Like any new technology that comes out, like not that it applies to all of us, but when TikTok first came out, Charles and I were talking about this, it was the cheapest place to market easily. It's not where your target clients hang out, so you don't need to worry about having missed out, because that's just not where businesses are. But e-commerce brands and people online were getting the best results out of it. It's like ChatGPT coming out right now. There's like a honeymoon period where you can do some really cool things with it that I don't think you'd be able to do.
Gone slightly over time, but thank you so much for staying with us, and all your fantastic questions. A really interesting group of perspectives in there. And it just falls to me to thank you, Tom, so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Charles. It's always a pleasure. We did our joint presentation in New Zealand not that long ago, and I think this one went off with a bang as well. So thank you for having me very much.
Brilliant. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you next time.